The Fantom network recently has seen a massive spike in different protocols that allow individuals to make passive income. And here's the thing, is with the growth of Fantom, and it's only going to keep on growing, the more opportunities are about to appear. However, there's one particular protocol called TOMB Finance, and this is, as it says, the first algorithmic stablecoin on Fantom Opera. However, it's not a stablecoin because it's pegged to, it literally says it right here, pegged to the price of Fantom via seigniorage. So again, I'm not going to dive in too much to what this means. Rather, I'm going to dive in to the entire protocol and show you what I'm doing and how I'm playing this in order to go ahead and make money. Now, there's one little caveat that I'm really paying attention to and I'm a little weary about, because the TVL right now is around 835 million. Now, in retrospect, a lot of these platforms in the DeFi space, the TVL, once they hit that $1 billion mark, around the 800 to $1 billion range, 800 million to $1 billion range, it seems to kind of not tether off, but more than anything seems to stabilize, and new money needs to be poured into it for it to necessarily see a massive spike. However, there's other TOMB forks that have recently appeared on multiple different chains that do show opportunity. However, I will start playing and putting a little capital into TOMB because I'm going to play it for the long term. However, I really want to break down what TOMB is and everything you need to know, because I had to sit here and learn everything about TOMB and how these protocols work. So first thing is first, we're going to dive into TOMB Finance, and you can see that they have the TOMB token, the T-share, and the T-bond. Now we're going to break down every single one of these. Now, the TOMB token is essentially a cash token. Now, this is the tokens on these protocols that are typically pegged to the dollar, or a stable coin, excuse me. So in this case, TOMB is actually pegged to the price of Fantom. So just keep this in mind, is that TOMB is pegged to the price of Fantom, and it's a cash token. And T-share, the share token, is when the cash token is above the underlying pegged price, in this case, Fantom, right? Because again, we just talked about the cash token being pegged to Fantom. The supply extends in proportion to how much circulating supply is available on the open market at the rate that is defined by the protocol. So when this is above 1 Fantom, what happens is the supply expands every 6 hours. And we'll talk about this in just a second. Okay, so this is, T-shares has a direct correlation based on the actual TOMB price. So keep that in mind, and this will all make more sense as we dive into it. So the current circulating supply at the time of me writing up this document was 135,328,545. So here's this little documentation that they have around here. Let me just go to tokens. I think it's around on okay, so here it is. So we can see that if I expand this, the TOMB circulating supply is 500,000 or less, all the way up to where we are 50 million supply or more, which again, we are above the 50 million supply here on the TOMB token. So in this case, when I took this snapshot, it was 135 million, which means that we'll fall into the 1% expansion. Now again, the expansion happens when the price of TOMB is above 1 Fantom, all right? So right over here, because we're above the 1% or 50 million TOMB, right? So over here, let me just pull this up. The total TOMB circulating supply is over 50 million, which it currently is. There will be a 1% expansion, which means that this is going to be multiplied every 6 hours. Again, this is called an epoch. So every 6 hours, this will expand based off of that chart that you just saw. So in which case, this is going to expand 1%. So what's going to expand 1%? The total circulating supply, in this case, 135 million multiplied by 1% will equal exactly this, is I think 1.3 million. I forgot to put the commas in here. But where does this 1.3 million TOMB go? Well, the expansion goes to participants that are staking their share token. In this case, it's in the Masonry for TOMB. So at the very top over here, we're in the Masonry, right? So participants that are participating in the Masonry will go ahead and get their share, whatever their total percentage of the circulating supply is, that percentage they get in what the expansion is. So here's important factors to keep in mind when we're looking inside the Masonry. What exactly should you keep in mind here? Why stake, all of that. So let's dive into this. So here's important factors. The next epoch, which again, next epoch in 55 minutes. This is if you're staking, then you're going to see your total TOMB earned. So the next epoch is basically when the epoch resets, and that's when the next yield of rewards will appear. So TWAP, okay, which stands for the time weighted average price. It's the average time weighted over / divided by the predetermined amount of time. So average time weighted divided by a predetermined amount of time, and that's in their docs, is in this case 0.987 Fantom. So in this case, the TWAP over here is 0.9871 at the time of recording this. So as long as it's over one Fantom, okay, as long as it's over one Fantom, we're gonna see an expansion every epoch, every 6 hours. So again, this isn't over one Fantom. So again, just keep in mind that the expansion over here isn't necessarily occurring because it's not over one Fantom, all right? So the APR, if you buy T-share on open market or you farm them, when you deposit, all right, every 6 hours, you're going to earn TOMB. So here, let me show you what this means. So in order to earn TOMB in the Masonry, you have to purchase T-share, or you can farm it, but again, we'll talk about that in just a few minutes. However, let's just say for now that you're buying T-share on the open market. This is where you would stake it, and in return, this epoch would reflect how much TOMB you earn. And then obviously you can liquidate your TOMB for Fantom, and then you can do whatever you want with your Fantom. You can liquidate it to USD. If you transfer it into something like KuCoin or Binance, you can liquidate it to USDT, whatever it is. So again, you would stake your T-share, and the APR over here is as follows, is the APR. So if you buy T-share on the open market or farm them, which we'll get to, you'll earn that APR every 6 hours, and you'll earn TOMB in direct correlation to the amount of T-shares that you have staked in the total pool. So here's this example, and it shouldn't say image, it should say imagine. So let's just see 29,076 T-shares. So let me go back to the home page right here, and let's see the total T-shares over here, 29,078 T-shares, right? So if I had roughly 1% of what is mentioned over here inside the T-shares staked, if I had 1% of this, then when the next expansion happens, remember, above the 1% of total circulating supply, remember we talked about the total circulating supply of TOMB, which was 1.3 million, we would go ahead and multiply that by 80%, and because of the fact that 80% goes to the Masonry stakers, so those participating in the Masonry go ahead and get 80% of the total TOMB that is minted essentially, and that is distributed amongst the people that are participating in the Masonry. But if I have 1% of the total staked, then obviously I'm getting 1% of that 80% of the total TOMB generated. So 80% of the 1.3 million would equal about 1.08 million, and it's split between everyone staking T-shares. So in this case, 1.08 and multiplied by my theoretical 1%, which again is the 29 mentioned above, I would get 10,826 TOMB. All right. So, just keep that in mind. So TOMB tokens multiplied by current price equals total Fantom or TOMB worth. So multiply that by 4 because one epoch is 6 hours, and 6 times 4 is 24. There's 24 hours in a day. Like I just said, then TOMB worth multiplied by 4 equals your daily income. All right. So, or the daily, passive rewards that you get, whatever you want to call it. So if I deposit right over here, you see the staked T-shares can only be withdrawn after 6 epochs since deposit. So what does this mean? If I stake T-share right now, I have to wait 6 epochs before I can remove them, aka 36 hours, because 6 times 6 equals 36 if my my math is correct. Probably not, because I'm a dropout. But if I do anything significant, then the timer resets. So if I withdraw and claim the reward, then the timer resets itself and I have to wait another 6 epochs, all right? Now, let's actually talk about the T-bonds, because bonding is essential to any DAO protocol, anything, relatively almost everything in the DeFi protocol except yield optimizers. Bonds are really important. So let's actually dissect the bonds. So don't worry about the market value of bonds at any given time specifically. However, bonds aren't relevant until the price of TOMB dips below one price of Fantom. So the TWAP has to dip below the price of Fantom. And that's when bonds are important, okay? So again, if it dips below, bonds become really important here. And bonding at this current time is, yes, it's important. So T-bond, if the TWAP of TOMB goes down to a certain level, then the protocol determines how many bonds should be minted based on the TWAP of TOMB. So long story short is the protocol, TOMB Finance, determines how many T-bonds can be minted because that TOMB is below one Fantom, right? So the participants of TOMB Finance will take TOMB and exchange it for T-bond and puts T-bond on the open market and it burns TOMB. You get that? So essentially it's burning the TOMB for the T-bond. Very simple. This basically removes the supply of TOMB out of circulation. In theory, it raises the price of TOMB because, again, obviously, when you remove something from the supply, it makes the value of it theoretically go higher. So why is this important? Is because if you think TOMB will go over the underlying Fantom price, if you think TOMB will go back over one over here, then the T-bonds will be sold back at a higher premium. So you'll be able to liquidate your T-bond at a higher cost than what you paid for it if Fantom goes, if TOMB goes over one Fantom basically. Now, why is this important? Is because you have to understand what makes TOMB essentially go over one Fantom is if the community and the participants rally to buy the bonds. If they don't rally and buy the bonds, there's no way that TOMB can be burned because nobody's buying bonds. So it all comes back down to participation in the community, which is why TOMB is the safest protocol when we're talking about seigniorage protocols here, okay? So keep that in mind. It really comes down to participation. So this is a risk to reward play. You have to be a little bit more advanced in order to play in the bonds here, or you have to understand market narrative. But they can be very profitable. Now, ideally, we want the price of TOMB to be above the price of Fantom so we can have healthy price swings and continuously allow the protocol to expand, offer expansions, right? So again, the protocol can't expand because it's not above one Fantom. So in order for the protocol to expand, it's healthy to have this bonding system here. You gotta understand the bonding system is the backbone to making this entire project profitable long term. The individuals who really prospered the most here were the individuals who participated very early on. So, and again, that can be said with anything, right? So let's talk about the cemetery participation breakdown. So we have the cemetery up here. Now this is very simple. It's liquidity pools where you can provide liquidity, obviously. So each pool you participate in, provide liquidity to, will earn you T-shares. So if I just click on the TOMB FTM LP, you can see that if I create a liquidity pool token and provide that token to TOMB, then I'll go ahead and be rewarded in T-shares, and you can see the daily APR, yada, yada, right? So this won't affect the TOMB price because TOMB is all handled in the Masonry. Remember, it's all handled in the Masonry. You're getting T-shares here. You're getting T-shares. Keep that in mind. So TOMB FTM LP put into Grim, which we'll talk about Grim in just a few moments here, will actually 50% Fantom and 50% of TOMB, that's how you create liquidity, will actually go ahead and theoretically move the price up and you get higher APYs. So just keep in mind that You can see the APR over here is 121.19, but if we go to Grim, let me just make sure it's the same. TOMB FTM LP, you can see the APY is 244. So technically speaking, that's double what TOMB is offering. And long story short, you can compound your earnings if you're providing LP to get T-shares using something like Grim, which we'll get to in just a second. And not a lot of people know this. So the share price, T-share price, has a direct correlation to the strength of the community and participants, like I just said, inside the ecosystem. So T-share are rewarded very, very slowly. They are a low supply token, and they are always getting locked up in the Masonry. So let's take a look at this. We can see that when I took this screenshot here, there was 41,000 T-share in circulation. However, the Masonry only reports 29,075 locks. So if we go back to TOMB Finance, we can see that T-share, there's 41,060, but if we go back to, let's go back to the Masonry, we can see there's 29,078 staked. So if we subtract those two numbers, we have close to 12,000, so 11,176 T-shares. So if someone wants to buy T-share, they're gonna have to purchase it on the open market essentially. And it's gonna move the price pretty rapidly because there's not a massive supply. So the price is very volatile because the supply isn't like your traditional tokens where there's millions, billions, and sometimes even trillions of tokens on the open market where the price doesn't necessarily move that much given if there's liquidity behind that project. So that's just in theory. So if you stake T-share, then take your TOMB every 36 hours and sell it on market, or what you can do is take half of that and get Fantom back and then put it into a TOMB pool. Now, again, this is really important. What I'm saying here is two different ways that you could participate and actually earn passive income, if you will, with TOMB Finance. So you would stake your T-share. Long story short, you'd go ahead and stake your T-share. You'd get TOMB, and then you would liquidate your TOMB for Fantom, and then Fantom is, you could send it to any exchange and liquidate it. Or what you can do is you can go into the cemetery and provide LP and get T-shares back. And yeah, basically just it's just one big circle over and over and over again. You could liquidate your T-shares, whatever it is, right? So again, if you get T-shares here, you can go back into the Masonry, then get your TOMB from the Masonry. You get the idea, okay? If you don't want to buy it on the open market, you know, you can provide LP, you get it now, okay? So typically T-share will keep increasing in price rapidly, so there's a way to capitalize on this even more to get better ROIs, which is using something like Grim Finance. So it's grim.finance, and if you go and search the asset for TOMB, you can see that you're able to provide liquidity for TOMB Fantom LP. Rather than taking the LP token that you create and putting it into TOMB Finance, you can actually put it into Grim Finance, and you'll be able to go ahead and earn almost double the APY. So if we just take a look at, right over here, and we go to the TOMB FTM, we can see the APR is 121, and we can see right over here that we're going to be getting 244, which is literally double, right? So you can compound a lot faster. So again, if you're looking to do that, then yeah, then that would be the route for you to go down. So the APY here is incredible for compounding your LP. Now, this is really important, and I highlighted this because it's really important. The amount of T-share minted will be minted only within 1 year. There's a 1 year mint period, and then there's not going to be any more. So there's not going to be any more T-share. And if TOMB stays above Fantom peg, so if it stays above 1 Fantom, then the only way to get T-share is the open market. So if I want to go ahead and participate in the cemetery, or excuse me, in the Masonry, I'm going to have to buy my T-share off the open market to get TOMB, right? Or what I'd have to do is I'd have to go over here into the LPs, and I'd have to provide TOMB in order to get T-share in that case. But here's the thing, there's no more T-share after a year. So keep that in mind. So the community, this is where I'm going to end this off. The community must be willing to buy bonds if the price falls below the TOMB Fantom peg. If not, then it falls onto the DAO. So again, the DAO is pretty simple. TOMB Finance has their DAO fund right over here, and we can see the DAO transactions, right? We can see them burning TOMB, and we can see this happening, that it's falling back on the DAO overall for them to burn the TOMB in order for this, for the TOMB backing to stay above 1 Fantom. So I kind of just outlined everything you needed to know about TOMB Finance. The key here is to find these on different chains that are up and coming. So look for these type of protocols, these seigniorage protocols that are on new up and coming layer ones, and capitalize off of it. I'm telling you. Is it good to get into TOMB Finance now? It's listen, I personally am going to put a little bit of money in, but I think it's at a really high TVL. Can it go higher? Absolutely. Do I see a Fantom DeFi season coming? Absolutely. Does that mean it's going to go higher? Inevitably, yes. But how high can we go when a lot of these protocols already top out around 800 million to 1 billion? Gem Hunters, we've been progressing really fast. I'm thankful for all of you and all your support thus far. If you want to know anything else, just leave it in the comments, slap a like, subscribe with notifications, and I'll see you all tomorrow. Have a great night, everybody.